Know what they say, a little Florida water go a long way. Don't sleep on it. Trust me. Beware of the loup-garou. I don't know why I like that word, and it's so funny to me. Loup-garou.
One day we all gonna have a conversation about how when you are vibrating on a certain frequency, how people really want to touch you.
She's not lying. When you resonate at a certain frequency, people are gonna always gravitate to you. They're gonna always want to touch you. They're gonna always want your time. They're gonna always want to be around you. So I was friends with this girl back in 2019. Like, we were super good friends. Her family knew my family. You would see her, you would see me. When you see me, you would see her. It was always out together. It was even to a point where people are like, "Are you guys sisters?" We were really super close with each other. He was messing around with this guy who was a straight demon. Like, the guy was a demon. And how I would know she was with this guy is when she would come to me and her eyes were super black, like she had raccoon eyes. And I used to tell her, like, "Why do you continuously mess around with this man?" She would always respond, "I can't help it. I just can't get away from him." And it was to the point where all his energy started to gravitate to me. It's like she was taking all of my energy to give to him. The guy had glowy brown eyes, like he just looked like a demon. There was one day she kept inviting me to sit at his house. I guess they were taking their relationship seriously, and she wanted me to sit with her to meet him. So I can kind of gauge his energy because I'm very good at reading people. I went to his house, she came with me, and he wanted to formally introduce himself. When I got there, like, the guy was super excited. Like, it was kind of weird. It was very off-putting. And he actually gave me a hug, and the way he rubbed my back was like very, very odd. Like, he kept rubbing my back. And my friend is sitting there like, yeah. So the guy pops open some wine, he's talking, we're chatting, and there was a one point in time where both of them went to the back room. So when they came out, there's no telling what they did. He sat down next to me and started rubbing my hand. Tell you, like, my experiences with energy and people, it's been through the roof. I pulled my hand away because I was super duper uncomfortable. My friend is sitting here and you're trying to rub my hand. So he apologizes. "Oh, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to make you feel uncomfortable." He kept saying, "I just want to read you." And I'm like, "What do you mean, read me?" He's like, "I feel like you're holding off your energy. I feel like you're holding it off, blah, blah, blah." At that moment, I instantly knew what it was. So I started heading to the door. And it's like he kept distracting me to prevent me from leaving. Also, the house was super duper cold. He kept pulling me away like, "Okay, before you go, I want to show you this. I want to introduce you to this. I want you to see this." Like, he kept trying to show me things to prevent me from opening that door and leaving. He did it like 3 or 4 times. And that last time, I instantly knew what it was. And my friend is just sitting there dormant, like, not doing anything. The way that I felt was so abnormal. Like, I didn't really see the physical results until the next day. I had huge bags under my eyes. I was pale. I was so tired. Like, so tired. And people were fucking asking me, like, "Are you okay? Are you alright?" Like, I looked like I was sick. That's literally how it is when people take your energy. And I never knew what that felt like or what that looked like until that situation. If you're ever around someone and you start to feel ill, like sick, always pay attention to how you look the next day. Always pay attention to how you feel the next day. Because I guarantee, if you feel like how I felt, that person is draining you for everything that you got. For sure, that man was trying to take all of my energy. When you have good energy, when you know you have good energy, you really have to be 10 times more careful than the average person.
When you hear the word vampire, what do you picture? Probably someone pale, fanged, lurking in the dark, and hungry for blood. What if I told you not all vampires fed the same? Today we're diving into the dark realm of real vampire archetypes. From traditional folklore to modern day energy feeders. Let's explore the different types of vampires you may or may not have heard about. Okay, so let's start with the ones that we all know. That would be traditional vampires. These would be the creatures of folklore, the undead who rise to feast on the living. Stories of vampires spread across several continents: the Slavic Nosferatu, the Caribbean Lugaru, as well as the Filipino Malalango. This next type of vampire that we're going to get into, you probably have encountered and you have no idea. And that would be sexual vampires, often referred to as an incubus or a succubus. And just like the name, you guessed it, these beings feed off of your sexual energy. In folklore, they seduce their victims either in dreams or during moments of intimacy, to do nothing other than to drain their vitality. During spiritual and occult circles, this term is also used to describe people who harvest energy through sexual encounters. It's not always malicious, but it's definitely intentional. Think of it as someone feeding off of your life force through pleasure. Now let's talk about the most common but misunderstood vampire, and that would be the energetic vampire. These individuals feed off of spiritual and emotional energy, and they're not always aware that they do it themselves, but some people are. Have you ever been around someone who leaves you feeling drained, anxious, or straight up irritable? But before the interaction, you were completely fine? That's how you know you've come in contact with the energy vampire. That's the effect that the energetic vampire has. Some people do practice this intentionally through rituals, but others unconsciously feed on other people's light. And it's to compensate for their own imbalances or lack of energy. Exactly what it sounds like, a parasite. I have had people ask me, can I be a energy vampire without knowing it? And to answer it simply, yes. Many people of the spiritual community believe that you can become a vampire due to spiritual imbalances, blockages, or possibly being hexed, or even through experiencing severe trauma. You might not be going around and biting people's necks, but you're constantly absorbing people's energy. So that means it's time to check your own aura. Healing, grounding, and self-awareness can break those patterns and easily restore balance. And y'all know I had to throw this in there because I wouldn't be a good educator if I didn't do so. So we're going to talk about ways to protect yourself. So now that you know what you're looking for, here are some simple ways to protect yourself and your energy. One way is through spiritual baths, something that you can always get from the Mystic Muse. You know what they say, a little Florida water go a long way. Don't sleep on it. Trust me, you need some. The next would be through crystals, all right? Most black crystals are really good for protection. So that is going to be your black obsidian, that's going to be your black tourmaline, black jasper, and more. And of course, you can always get these with the Mystic Muse as well. Another really good way that you can protect yourself from energy vampires are setting up certain protective wards and charms for yourself. So as you can see, this one is one that I keep on my bag. So whenever I'm out and about, nobody can throw that evil out of my way or try to take any of my energy. Outside of using spiritual salts to keep your body cleansed of energy vampires, you can also use regular salt to protect your home. And it doesn't have to be anything expensive. I got this from the dollar store. You can use it to sprinkle it across thresholds or even in window sills. Anywhere that is going to be an entrance to wherever your energy is, you got to keep it protected. But ultimately, the best protection is going to be awareness. I cannot stress that enough. I tell you guys all the time, the biggest protection is going to be that spiritual discernment. We all have it, so it needs to be used. Don't ignore your instincts. If you feel drained after encountering someone, you might want to stop being around that person. They're clearly taking your energy away. Take it back. Vampires aren't just legends. They're metaphors, symbols, and in some cases, actual archetypes. From the cryptic to the club, they walk with us and sometimes within us. All right, so before we wrap this up, I want to hear from you guys. What is your story? If you've had a spooky encounter or any type of crazy spiritual phenomenon that's happened to you, I want to hear about it. I want to hear about all the unexplained experiences and the folklore stories that have been passed down in your families. So make sure that you guys email me. I'm going to be introducing a new segment where I'm going to be sharing real stories from viewers like you. Okay, that sounded really PBS-ish. Okay. So if you're ready to share your story with me and the rest of YouTube, go ahead and send an email over to the mysticmusecreations@gmail.com. And who knows, your experience might be the next one that I bring on my YouTube channel. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. Make sure you drink your water, mind your business, and stay prayed up and protected. And as always, Luna loves you.
Okay, what's up, y'all? So I seen a girl make a video about how she was from New Orleans and she ran into a vampire on her, I think it was UPS, or she works in the mailing industry, so she was delivering to what she think was either a vampire or a witch. So I want to tell y'all my experience of New Orleans and like the whole vampire situation, because I know for a fact I ran into a vampire at University Hospital in Louisiana. So January 26th, my boyfriend got shot 9 times in our apartment. That's a story for another day because it's still an open case. So that night they transferred him from Alabama, because we're from Alabama, to Louisiana, the university in Louisiana. So at first it was good, you know what I'm saying? I didn't really have no suspicions or nothing. Like, it was just going good. After he had his surgery, you know, he was straight. And side note, y'all, I was gonna get him to do this with me, but his mouth is wired. Okay, so I think this was like a week later, maybe 2 weeks later, but I was up there for almost the whole time. Like, I only came home one time to take my baby to the doctor. So when I came back, things started getting a little weird. So it was this nurse. Every night, like, she only came at night. Every night she came, and every time she came in the room, it was like an off feeling. So the whole day, me and my boyfriend was watching on TV. You know, we just chilling. And I had made a joke. I was like, babe, you realize that every channel we turn on, every movie that comes on is about a vampire? Literally the only thing that we kept seeing on TV. So me and him was joking about it, and he was like, yeah, you know, this is the home of the vampires, blah, 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 blah. Well, he wasn't really saying it, but, you know, I knew what he was trying to say. So that night, this lady came in the room, the same lady that comes every night. And mind you, my boyfriend, his veins are really hard to find. Like, everybody that came to take his blood, like, would take 2 to 3 tries to get his blood. But every night this lady came, she got it on the first try. So this specific night, this is the day that we was watching vampire movies the whole day. Mind you, that's the only thing that was playing on TV, right? So this specific night, she comes in the room, and she has an accent. So she came in, she was like, I came to take your blood. She has like a Jamaican accent, foreigner accent, so, you know. So he was like, he said, okay, blah, blah, blah. He was like, I like your accent. Where are you from? And so I forgot what she said. She either said Jamaica or Honduras, something like that. And so he was like, okay. He was like, how do you like it from your home country? And she was like, I like it. It's death everywhere. So we kind of look at each other. We're like, okay, like, that was a little weird. So boom, she takes the blood. Mind y'all, she does this in less than 30 seconds. Like, I kid you not. She stick it in there, got the blood, and was walking out. So my boyfriend, he made a comment. He was like, you get my blood so fast, you must be a vampire. Y'all, I kid you not. This lady turns around, mid-walk out the door. She turns around, looks us in our eyes, like, contact, and she says, yeah. Now, y'all probably like, nah, she probably just playing, like, nah. But you could tell the feeling, the feeling that filled the room was like, don't F with this girl. Like, don't ask her no more questions, because, yeah, something is definitely off. And, you know, usually somebody will be like, boy, stop playing. Like, I'm not no, you know what I'm saying? I'm not no vampire. Or they'll say something funny back. But she was so serious. Like, she was dead serious, y'all. Like, eye contact, facial expression, and walked straight out the door when she said yes.
My dad's a vampire. I have to explain this a lot. So vampirism with a Y, because they do want to distinguish themselves from like fictional vampires and the fact that they're not just like people who hang out in Transylvania and suck blood, whatever, you know? It's sort of a religious belief that is a combination of just like ideals on how to live your life. There is a vampiric Bible that I one time asked my dad to loan to me, and he never did. But it's a lot less defined than other religions, but sort of basically it's that like we are God, like man is God and God is one with man. And like a lot of the way that it is realized for vampires is that like you absorb people's like energy and you spend time around other people in other faiths. My dad used to lead a like multi-faith religious group of people who were like Muslims and Christians mostly, and then some other religions, you know, it's the States. And he kind of described it as absorbing other faiths and beliefs and stuff. But he also used to have cat-eye contacts and sleep in a coffin. So like, you know, it's a mix of things.
Fun fact, the idea that vampires can die or be destroyed by being exposed to sunlight is not tied to any of the original vampire folklore. The idea was actually introduced in the 1922 film Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror. In traditional folklore, vampires are nocturnal, like raccoons. You might see one during the day, but mostly they sleep during the day and only come out at night. In most traditional folklore, vampires are reanimated corpses, so already partially decomposed, and they feed on the living to try and rebuild their body. So essentially they would draw way too much attention to themselves walking around during the day. It's also kind of just human psychology. If you hear something go bang behind a shed during the day, you're like, oh, it's just a cat. But at night, when you can't see anything, it becomes far more scary. The earliest literary references to vampires, Carney, Lord Ruthven, and Camilla, all had a very whatever attitude towards the sun. Even Bram Stoker's Dracula was fine with the sun, but he was just far less powerful during the day, and this is because Stoker understood the basic rules of horror, that things are more scary at night. But in the 1922 film Nosferatu, A Symphony of Horror by Friedrich Wilhelm Murnau, it featured a scene of the film's vampire, Count Orlok, being destroyed by the sun. Upon the film's release, though, Bram Stoker's widow, Florence Balcombe, sued the filmmakers for copyright infringement, saying it was basically a ripoff of her late husband's classic novel, Dracula. It took 7 years, but Florence Balcombe ended up winning the case, and in her settlement, it stipulated all copies of Nosferatu be destroyed, which they were. The only reason we have copies of Nosferatu today is because French film collector Henri Langlois kept his copy of the film, kept it hidden from the Nazis during World War II, and in 1947 donated his copy to the Museum of Modern Art in New York City. But the film had had a lasting effect on those who had seen it before it was destroyed. The idea that vampires could be destroyed by sunlight permeated popular culture. In 1943's Return of the Vampire, vampires were now killed by sunlight, and the later Dracula films featured many vampire death scenes thanks to vampires being exposed to sunlight. And in 2009, the sequel to Bram Stoker's Dracula, Dracula the Undead, written by Bram Stoker's grandson Dacre Stoker and Ian Holt, they note in the first chapter how sunlight can kill a vampire, something that is not present in the original book.
Hello, TikTok. Fagger Freestyle here with another story time about the time I met a vampire. I tried to do this story the other day on live and it just did not work out. But anyway, I just decided to record a video. People have been asking me about the story, so here it goes. I'm a rideshare driver in New Orleans. So, of course, I encounter all types of people from all walks of life. This one particular ride was very interesting. Now, this was a couple of years ago when this occurred. And I'm going to tell you, for the most part, I remember what she said. I do not remember what she looked like. And there are some details that when the experience was over, like I had completely forgotten some things. But anyway, so I'm riding, pick up this passenger, and I remember our conversation. And the craziest thing is I can remember her voice. I can, and even as I'm telling you this, I can hear her voice in my head. And I can even picture like this part of her face around her mouth, her lips. I can see them moving as she's talking to me. And I remember her hand being on my shoulder, and I remember what it felt like when she touched me. But a lot of other stuff, it's like was just completely erased. So I pick her up, and I do know that we were having conversation. I talked to many of my passengers, and she is telling me I have really great energy. So I told her thank you. You know, she asked me some things about myself, you know, nothing too private, nothing with too many details. So, you know, I just kind of gave her some general info. And I remember her telling me that she wasn't from here. That I do remember. And then she proceeds to tell me how much she loved New Orleans, how much she loved being there, living there, etc., etc. I do recall asking her where she was from originally, and all she told me was that she was from very far away. And it's funny again because I'm hearing her voice in my head as this is weird. And I've never shared this story with anybody, so TikTok, you're getting it first. She touched my shoulder at one point, and this is where things got really strange. She touched my shoulder, and I felt like I just froze. And even as I'm talking to you right now, I can distinctly remember that feeling of feeling frozen. And my hands were on the wheel because I could see my hands on the wheel. The car wasn't moving. And being frozen in that moment, I hear her voice, but not like I'm here talking to you. In my head, I hear her voice telling me, don't be scared, that she's not going to harm me. And then after that, we're moving again. And I remember kind of turning and looking like that. And she was sitting back in the seat and her hands were on her lap. And I said, what did you do to me? And she just smiled. And she says, I just leached some of your energy. And I said, what? She said, I just leached some of your energy. She said, this is going to sound crazy, but I can assure you it's true. I'm a vampire. She said, but I'm not the type of vampire that you've been taught about in books and movies. She said, those types of vampires exist, but they're very rare these days. I'm a vampire that feeds off of energy. And all I have to do is touch you to get it. She said, New Orleans is a great place for her and her kind to exist. And that there are quite a few members of their tribe, is what she called them. I think I remember this part of our conversation so significantly because I believe when she touched me, she implanted something in my mind, whether you want to call it a memory or a thought or an idea. But she gave me something of herself, probably, to where I can recall this portion of the interaction between us. Maybe she knew that eventually I would share the story with others and therefore maybe make it a little bit more acceptable for them to start, for her and her members to start presenting themselves. I don't know. I don't know why she even chose me for this. But she told me that there are vampires that survive off of good energy. There are vampires that survive off of bad energy. There are vampires that survive off of sexual energy. And there are vampires that survive off of blood. And New Orleans is the only place in the world where you can find members of all four of those vampire tribes. Maybe she wanted me to remember this portion of it as a warning. I don't know. But I know she wasn't lying. just because of how I felt. And even now, it's crazy because I still feel like her hand is on my shoulder, which makes me wonder, when she touched me, did she create some type of psychic connection between the two of us? I don't know, but I think I need to end this. Anyway, I don't remember where I dropped her off at. I don't even remember dropping her off. The next thing I remember doing clearly was being in a part of town that I didn't remember how I even got there. And it was like 2 hours later. And I was just in a parking lot. Just in a parking lot. And I know it sounds weird, y'all. I think I probably shouldn't even recorded this. I probably shouldn't even be talking. I probably should not even be talking about this. I shouldn't.
This is the true story of how I ended up in VIP with a vampire. For those of you that don't know, I'm a dancer in New Orleans. And trigger warning, this is the craziest shit I've ever said. Definitely the craziest shit I've ever seen. So last Friday, I walk up to a man at the bar, and he's very clean cut. We begin to talk. He tells me that he's a doctor, very charming, the type of man you would want to take to the VIP. So we ended up going to the VIP, and he wants to show me a picture of his girlfriend, which isn't unusual because some guys get off on other girls finding their woman attractive. So I'm here for that. Let me see her. I'm gonna hype her up. But he scrolled on the wrong picture, and he panics and he tries to scroll, but he knows that I had already seen it. And he asked me, "What do you think?" And we're just both in the VIP room staring at each other like, I say, "What is that?" Because all I see is a girl on a bed covered in blood with a man with the home IV drip. My first impression is I'm in the room with a serial killer. He then proceeds to tell me that he likes to draw his girlfriends and rub it all over his body during, and then afterwards, the only way he can feel close to a woman is if he drinks her. So I say, "Would you like to leave me a tip? Because that was weird as shit." Just kidding, I didn't say that, but he did give me a $300 tip and said he was coming back.